Thanks. Good afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. That is going to take a little getting used to. Welcome to the June 25th, 2025 meeting of the City of Asheville's Board of Adjustment. My name is Suzanne Godsey, and I am chair of this board. The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance, also referred to as the UDO. We are authorized to hear requests for variances from the city's UDO, appeals from final determinations made by city officials charged with enforcement of the city's UDO, requests for reasonable accommodations, and other requests as may be provided in the city's ordinances. Our first agenda item is the review and adoption of the minutes of the May 19th, 2025 regular meeting and approval of the findings of fact and conclusions of law from the May 19th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes and findings of fact and conclusions of law?
I motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. We will now begin the evidentiary hearings in the cases listed on today's agenda. In hearing cases, the board conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means it is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decisions. These rules are different from some other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. This board's decisions are constrained by the standards in the city's ordinance and the facts presented at the hearing. The board hears and considers evidence presented and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's UDO. The board must base its decisions upon competent material and substantial evidence presented. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. Participation is limited. This meeting is open to the public and everyone is welcome to watch. Parties with standing have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standards. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, this board needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. For variance requests, a 4/5 vote of the board is required to grant the variance. For all other hearings and matters, including the adoption of minutes, the decision will be made by a simple majority vote of the board. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. So at this time, we will administer the oath for all individuals who intend to provide witness testimony. So if you plan to speak today on any of the matters, whether you have standing or just wish to participate, if you will please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you so much. Our first variance, the petitioner Lindsay Hammer is, and I may be pronouncing that wrong, is requesting a variance to the flag standards in Section 711-2J3B and Section 711-2J3C flag lots of the Unified Development Ordinance. The applicant is seeking relief from the required flag lot width of 20 feet. The property is known as 5 White Avenue with a PIN number of 9647949083. Before Daniel Fleer does his presentation today, there are a couple things that we need to just state for the record. I believe that everybody on this board received an email from a citizen in the city of Asheville about this specific application. I glanced through it. I had a follow-up conversation with the gentleman who wrote the email. We did not discuss the case because we had not seen the application. It was not on the portal yet. So just in full transparency, want to get that in the record. Do you want to speak to that, Carly, at all, or?
Just that the board is just obligated by our ordinances and by state law to disclose any ex parte communications. So if any other member of the board had any ex parte communications, then just disclose those. Otherwise, you're welcome to move on.
Great. So disclosed. And then the other item that we would like to mention prior to getting started is that there is a difference between participation and standing when it comes to variances. And if you would like to speak on that, just as a little precursor to what each of those means.
Yeah, absolutely. So the difference is that you, in your discretion as a board in admitting evidence, you can allow people to participate in this hearing, and that is they will come up and speak, basically. But if they are somebody who is opposing the project and claiming that they have individualized damages because of the project, or they will have individualized damages, whether that be their proximity to a project, traffic concerns, safety concerns, what have you. They have to establish standing. And after establishing standing, they become a party to this hearing. They can cross-examine the applicant. They can bring up their own witnesses. And so they become more of a formal party to the proceeding, whereas somebody simply participating, you would basically just allow them to speak briefly. They would not be allowed to cross-examine the applicant or any of her witnesses. They would not be allowed to admit an expert into evidence or admit their own sort of documentary evidence into the record. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Okay, great. All right, Daniel, thank you for taking the time and letting us hear that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, to introduce myself, I am Daniel Fleer with the City of Asheville Planning and Urban Design Department. I'm an Urban Planner 1 in that office, and I'm presenting today on 5 White Avenue on these sections that Suzanne mentioned earlier.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Daniel. Before Daniel goes on, do we want to see if there's anybody in the crowd who is going to be seeking?
Yes,
standing?
thank you. That was where I was going, and then I completely.
No, that's okay.
That
Yeah,
was where I was going.
So when it comes to standing, we want to establish that before the presentation is made, because then if somebody does end up having standing, then they can ask questions during the presentation. And so I guess if anyone is seeking standing in this matter today, then you would come up and the board will ask you questions to establish standing. And for the board, that'll require a motion and vote, just a simple majority.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up? Go ahead.
I'm Catherine Rebecca Massey. I live next door to 5 White Avenue. I live at, speak more. I live next door at 7 White Avenue, and I just have 3 specific concerns about construction that might happen there and how it would directly affect my house and my neighbor's house. So is that close enough to have standing? Do you need to know what those concerns are ahead of time, or?
I don't think we need to know what
Okay.
those concerns are necessarily. If we think that proximity to the application's location would be enough. So if there is a board member that would like to make a motion to approve, and would you state your name again?
Catherine Rebecca Massey.
I motion to approve Catherine McAmasey. To have standing, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Hello, I am at 953 West Chapel Road, so I'm directly impacted. I'm behind the development project. It's a proximity issue, but it's also a stormwater issue. Stormwater comes off West Chapel between my property and next-door neighbor Jackie and comes directly through my backyard right into that lot. When it rains, back half of my lot's full of water, and so is theirs where they want to develop. I think that they need to have someone take a look at that issue before they start doing some kind of development, or at least take a look when it rains.
Thank you. Before we vote, Daniel, could you pull up the vicinity map so that she could point out where her property is?
Yes, absolutely. That would be helpful indeed. Let's see. This is probably the most zoomed in one we have. The outlined lot is the subject parcel, 5 White Avenue.
And I am at 953, which is at the corner of White and Chapel, which is that back, it borders that whole corner of the parcel that they want to have the variance for, that they want to make as a separate parcel for development.
Okay, so you're on the corner of White and, okay, I understand. Okay. And tell me your name again, ma'am? Could you state your name again, please?
Kathy Connor.
Go ahead and make a motion for Kathy Connor to have standing.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience? Okay, great. Now, Daniel.
Oh, there's one.
Oh, no, sorry. Come on up. You're welcome.
Why I'm here.
Okay.
I'm president of the Shiloh Community Association, and we have been up here several times with Barry, who started this flag lot conversation from the zoning and planning. And all of this is before City Council now to give us exception from this. So I don't know, this is like a backdoor effort now to try to come in while the city is looking at whether or not to allow us to have that variance. So we tried to send it to City Council. I don't know why they didn't get to somebody, but we'll have the time. And I don't know why trying to destroy what's left of our black neighborhoods. We're part of the Legacy Neighborhood Coalition, and we're trying to save some of the properties that we had. We don't have many left. And now all of a sudden, somebody's looking at how can we plot more stuff. And we've asked everybody who's come up to anything out in Shiloh, come out to Shiloh and see how some of these, where variance was given. And even on the back door of Rock Hill Baptist Church, somehow they got through, and you can look out of the church window into the bedrooms of the people in the house because there was a little piece of property there. That's what happens. And this may not be part of what you had wanted to hear, but that's what I'm saying. My name is Sophie. The last name is Dixon, D-I-X-O-N.
Sophie Dixon. Thank you, Mrs. Dixon. So from what I'm hearing, just 1 minute. We'll vote on her, and then you can come up, okay? Yes, ma'am. No, we're going to vote on you first, and then we'll have her come up.
Follow the process.
And so am I, believe me. This is a little unique for
I'm
us as
sure
well.
it is.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from Mrs. Dixon is that she is representing a neighborhood association with some broader concerns of legacy
Flag lot is
neighborhoods.
one of them.
And flag lots are definitely one of the items that has been discussed recently in other formats and other locations that does not include the Board of Adjustment. So the Board of Adjustment hears very site-specific, case-specific projects, not changing the ordinances or changing texts or anything like that, which I know you know. So this is just looking at this one specific application. Does the board want to ask Mrs. Dixon any questions, or does anyone?
I have a question when you get through.
Okay.
My question is this in regards to 5 White Avenue?
It applies to anywhere in Shiloh, because what the first proposal came through was showing all the properties in Shiloh that would qualify for a flag lot. So this is not just one instance; it's the whole plan.
It's the entire community.
That whole community.
The whole community.
And so when Barry came to our community, and he did what he was supposed to do, I guess, to try to show us how this would benefit us. I don't know how that was going to work, but anyway, it doesn't. And they are destroying our communities, and especially Shiloh, one of the few that's pretty much still left intact. And that's because of people like myself, 88 and 89-year-olds still struggling to try to hang on to our properties. We want some generational wealth too, and we want to be there, but it's not happening.
I understand.
And somebody coming in with one, oh, this is just one, and you know what one happens? One happens, it opens the whole door. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel, so.
We appreciate you sharing your concerns. I think that in the case of this actual variance, I don't know what the rest of the board considers, but I would not be voting for you to have standing, but I would be appreciative of you participating. So it doesn't limit your participation, it just limits the fact that of how our attorney was describing the difference between having standing versus just being a participant in the conversation.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's
So,
a way of getting out of it, but we just want you to know how we feel.
I appreciate that.
And Madam Chair, if you could still vote in the
Yes,
negative for that.
We will. Does anyone want to make a motion and the board does not need to agree with me, I'm just stating what my opinion was. You may make a motion to, in the affirmative, and we can vote aye or nay, or you can make the motion in the negative, and we can vote aye or nay on that, but I do need a motion.
Tend to agree with you. I'll make a motion in the negative
Not approved.
to not approve.
Yeah, I was going to say, so 5 White is part of the community, but it's not specific to this, what we're looking for. I would say standing is probably. Yes,
Case.
I do.
So the motion is on to. Oh, gosh, these mics, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to get comfortable today. Okay. All right, there's a motion on the table to not allow Ms. Dixon to have standing in this case. Can I get a second? Okay. This is to not allow Ms. Dixon to have standing in this case. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Right. Okay. Ma'am, if you would like to come up.
My name is Norma Baines. I'm the liaison for the Shiloh Community Association. And as all of you know about our 2025 plan and what we have in it, right? And one of the issues that we are having is because we're working with the city on things that are going on with their plan. And one of the things that we were working with was the flag lots, right? The flag lots. And we know there are flag lots all over the city, right? Well, what we want our neighborhoods not to be included, in all these variants that you're doing to get more houses there, because it creates, what should I say, a problem. Just like we have Rock Hill Missionary Baptist Church, and we have all those houses in a row, that they can't even move. They don't even have lots. They put the houses sideways so they could get the house in there, and it doesn't even face the street. We do not want any of that anymore in the Shiloh neighborhood. And that's why we're here to speak against this. And whether we have any voice in it or whatever, we're still trying to stand up for our legacy neighborhood. So many of our people have been displaced from our neighborhood, from the taxes and everything else that's going on. And so we're trying to do something to keep our neighborhood intact. It's one of the legacy neighborhoods. It was established on the Biltmore Estate in the 1700s, and it's been there. And we will move where we are today. And we will continue to try to embrace our neighborhood, keep our legacy, and keep everything intact. And that includes the land. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. Could you please state your name?
My name is Norma Baines, and that's Baynes.
Ms. Norma Baines. Again, you're not an adjacent property owner? Is that correct? You're not adjacent to this?
No, I'm
Okay.
not adjacent. I am a resident of Shiloh,
Okay, thank you.
but I'm not adjacent to the property.
Okay.
No.
And for right now and for this purpose, we're just trying to determine whether you have legal standing or you just are going to be a participant in this case. And so it sounds to me she's very similar to our previous speaker in that she is not directly impacted by this application. But I will leave that up to others to vote on that. If someone could make a motion as to whether or not Mrs. Baines has standing.
My motion to allow Mrs. Baines to be a participant. The motion is to not have standing.
To not have standing. Okay, can I get a second?
I'm sorry, did he say not? Is that-
Not.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, great. Okay, you may participate, but you have been determined to not have legal standing. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And Madam Chair, there is something I want to clean up, if you would permit me to have a second here. There has been some information that has been put before the board that I think needs clarification. On February 11th, staff and Barry Bialik did bring forward a number of zoning text amendments to City Council. There were two standards created for flag lots. There are standards for flag lots outside of certain legacy neighborhoods and what we call other 7F parcels. I'll get a little into that. That has reduced flag width and flag lot standards in terms of overall structure size. In those other 7F parcels, which include all 5 legacy neighborhoods and some other parcels determined through our missing middle housing study to be vulnerable to change, those still have flag lot standards. There was never a prohibition of flag lots. That is not being considered, and this is a very narrow scope that is brought before you today. The applicant, Ms. Hamer, is seeking a 1-foot variance from the existing flag lot standards. So what the standards were on February 10th is what still applies to those 7F standards today. So I want to be clear as people talk about what is and isn't happening. Flag lots are permissible in other 7F parcels.
And that does clear up a lot of the communication that we have heard so far. Does everybody on the board understand what Mr. Starbaum is saying? And Mr. Collins.
I'm going to add something for you all, and for staff and for the folks joining us today. The application today is for a variance specifically of the width of that flagpole section of a lot. This variance is not the tool to analyze or change the flag lot standards that are in place in our UDO. Right? We are simply looking at this particular lot and whether or not a 1-foot variance for that flag lot width is appropriate here. The standards that the state says have to be met, right? Because there are a lot of other issues at play with the flag lots and how they exist within this area versus other areas. But today the board should focus on whether or not essentially a hardship exists on this lot that necessitates a variance of 1 foot.
Right.
And I just wanted to include this information. Most of you know this, but so everyone can hear it. Almost everything in the UDO is eligible for someone to apply for a variance from. So this is, yes, there are some changed standards, but most of the content in the Unified Development Ordinance, our zoning ordinance, is eligible for any property owner to apply for a variance if they feel they have a hardship.
That's correct.
Right.
And so our application is extremely narrowly focused to the wording in the variance application by the applicant and is on a case-by-case basis. So that is what we're looking at today. No, we're going to dive into, we haven't even heard the presentation yet from staff yet, and I believe there is at least one other person that would like to come up and speak. And again, we're determining whether or not you have standing or just participation in this case. So if you'll state your name.
My name is Shaniqua Samuel. I'm representing one of the legacy neighborhoods, the Shiloh Community Association, as neighborhood navigator. And I want to say it does take a lot of courage to come up here, not knowing the language, not knowing the process, just knowing what we need and trying to come to the right place to ask the right questions. Just want to mention that. You've already heard about our 2025 plan, our neighborhood plan. Yes, we're in 2025, but this was erected back in 2010. It took them 9 years to do, and they had consultation from the city. And the city did approve the different things that are in there, including flat lots. And right now, we're trying to get an overlay to further protect us from developers. It'd be nice if developers would do like Habitat Asheville Habitat for Humanity does. They build homes in Shiloh, but they come to us with a plan first. They respect what's been in place before they came and tried to be a part of our community. And we appreciate that. And now 25 homes are getting ready to come in Shiloh, and some of them are age in place, and several of them are going to be what we consider affordable. And so we're just asking that when developers come in, especially since we're so close to Biltmore State, and Biltmore State is going to be remodeled soon because of Hurricane Helene. That's going to bring more attention to our community. The developers don't even advertise our homes as Shiloh. People don't know they're in Shiloh, this historic community. They know they're south of Biltmore Village, Biltmore Estate, right? So it's almost like they're trying to create an appetizer from Shiloh down here to the road, down that corridor to Biltmore Estate. And so we're constantly reacting to what's happening, and we tried to have a plan in place, but that plan is not being honored. There's so much turnover that happens with city council, but we still have the problems that we face. And now I'm a new generation coming up, trying to make sure I understand what these octogenarians are just now sharing with you. And we don't want to be displaced. There is a history of displacement of people of color here in Asheville. We can go way back to urban renewal if we want to. There's a whole study, you can Google that online. But we don't want there to be a cultural erasure. And I do believe that we have standing because of Appendix 7F. I didn't hear everything that he said, but in the UDO and 7F, we do have standing because of that. And like I said, we're representing a coalition. There are 5 neighborhoods that are recognized by the city. Several of them also have neighborhood plans. But it's just terrible that we have to keep coming up here for the same thing. It's just a different way. It was planning and zoning here, city council here, now this new meeting, board of adjustments. It's just so much. We're just lay people trying to keep our community intact and trying to learn the language so we could talk to y'all. I know I probably don't have stand-in based on what you've said to my colleagues, but I think that we do because of Appendix 7F.
I really appreciate your passion and the care for your community, and I hear what you're saying. Could you state your name for us again?
Shaniqua Samuel.
Mule? Sam, could you please describe what 7F is? Just for the record.
Yes, in the process of crafting and bringing these zoning text amendments before council on February 11th, there were we heard the community, we heard the legacy neighborhoods, and we heard the work done through Missing Middle, and that Missing Middle housing study and the legacy neighborhoods identified these areas, again, 5 legacy neighborhoods and some other portions of certain census tracts that were identified as being most vulnerable to change. That's not to say that they aren't gentrifying, it was just vulnerable for change. And in the process of drafting that legislation, bringing those ordinances before city council, there had to be a way to bring those forward as a text amendment. So what you will see in the UDO is references for 2 standards. Again, the standards for certain dimensional changes in zoning districts, and then most relevant, you had cottage development standards and flag lot standards. So for those 3, there are 2 standards. You have what applies to all the city, and then these other 7F areas, again, those are the areas most vulnerable to change. Those include PIN numbers as an appendix, so those are references to specific properties. It is and I can bring up a map and share that all with you. Daniel can certainly do that at a time for presentation, and I make sure that is included for him. But it is an area in which that the standards are different than what was passed on February 11th. And that is true that, as I had said earlier, certainly for flag lots, in all other parts of the city, what Mr. Bialik, a local developer, brought forward was reduced width to 16 feet and a smaller dimension, so you can have a smaller lot. It would be easier to subdivide. So that is the standard for the city. Unless you are in one of those other 7F parcels, then the standard is the same as it was before the change and the reduction. It is 20 feet through the flag through the flagpole and other dimensional standards. Now, I want to be clear again in saying this distinction. What the applicant has brought forward and has been gracious enough to work in legal is she is not seeking a variance from 7F. She is just seeking a variance from the flag standard.
Correct. And I just wanted to get on.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Anna.
Before the February 11th, that standard, yes.
Yeah. The standard that is currently in all the 7F other parcels, which, believe me, is not fun to say repeatedly, in these parcels, that standard is what was across the entire city February 10th and before.
So in other words, this property that is the subject of the application is still going to be a 7F parcel. They're just seeking a variance to the applicable standard specific to flag lots.
And I'm assuming there's a couple 100 7F parcels, many more. So just by saying that you are a parcel that's listed in 7F doesn't necessarily mean that you have standing, is basically where I was going. But I wanted everyone to understand that 7F is a list of parcels that are excluded from the changes that have recently been implemented into the UDO. Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion as to whether or not your last name?
Samuel.
Ms. Samuel has got standing.
That Shaniqua?
Shaniqua, yes.
Shaniqua, oh, yeah. Daniels, right?
Samuel.
Samuel.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Chair and Board. I am seeking participation in this meeting. The justification for that would be that I'm a resident of Asheville. I have a master's degree in economic development. I'm also a local small-scale developer, so I'm intimately familiar with the requirements of the UDO. And though I don't represent it, I do happen to sit on the Planning and Zoning Commission for our city and was intimately involved with the development of the standards that are being reviewed today.
So I think you arrived a little bit late, but we are going to allow participation to all. So as long as you're not wanting to have standing, which it doesn't sound like you actually do based off of what you just said and how we voted on some of the other participants in today's hearing, I think that you are fine to participate when we get to the public hearing portion. Is
Thank you, Chair.
there anyone else that would like to get up? Okay, so Daniel. Thank you for your patience, Daniel.
How this will go now is Daniel will finally make his presentation, and then those with standing can speak after the applicant herself speaks, and they also will have the opportunity, those with standing, to ask the applicant questions, cross-examine her. If she happens to have any witnesses with her, they can cross-examine those as well. However, those who do not have standing may participate by coming up and speaking, but they do not have the opportunity to cross-examine or present documentary evidence.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you. And we've got 2 with standing, and the rest are just participatory. Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All right. So I'm just going to begin with a brief summary of the case, and then we'll go on to a few more process-related items. So yes, in this case, the applicant, Lindsay Hamer, is requesting a variance to the flagpole width standards in section 711-2J3 flag lots of our Unified Development Ordinance. The applicant is seeking relief from the required width of the flagpole portion of the lot measured at the street, as well as for the duration of the flagpole. The new flag lot would contain the existing residence on the lot, and the newly created lot would be a conforming standard RS8 lot on the street side of the existing home. And what I mean when I say a conforming standard RS8 lot is that it meets the minimum requirements for a lot in the zoning district of 40 feet in lot width and at least 4,000 square feet in lot area. As we can see towards the right of this chart below, this request is to reduce the minimum width of the flagpole to 19 feet, and this would be a 5% variance. The board has the ability to grant such variances based on this code section, but I'm just going to summarize it for everybody. The board is only permitted to grant a variance that would allow the creation of a non-conforming residential lot if that variance is for less than 10% of the relevant dimensional standard. And as I just said, the requested variance is for a reduction in the residential lot dimensional standards under that 10% threshold that I just noted, with the 1 foot variance in this case being a 5% reduction from the 20 feet standard. Just to recap the findings that this board must make in order to grant this variance request, there are 4 findings of fact that must be made. Number 1, the unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. Number 2, the hardship results from the conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Number 3, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. And number 4, that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Now we move on to our exhibits. Just to give the board some context here, this property is located to the south of I-40 and is bounded in between Sweeten Creek and Hendersonville roads. As our guests here have noted, this is in what is commonly referred to as the Shiloh neighborhood. Again, this is in the RS8 zoning district, which is our highest density residential single-family zoning district. Running along to the north of this parcel is West Chapel Road. This parcel itself is 5 White Avenue. This survey shows the proposed split of the lot. As I said earlier, the existing home will be on the flagpole to the rear, and this subdivision would create a new lot to the front of the existing home on the street side of the parcel. I've outlined the property lines here just to make them a bit more clear. And again, the flagpole section, which is that thin section to the right side of this image, is what we are discussing today, and whether that a variance, if it was granted, would allow that section to be 19 feet in width instead of 20 feet. These are some site photos. The driveway that we can see here serves this property as well as 7 White Avenue. We can see in this next image as it loads, the existing home towards the back of that lot with the red roof. The property line runs more or less just to the left of this existing driveway in this image, though as I stated, this driveway does serve 7 White Avenue, which is to the left of this parcel. Just for further background, the subject property is a 0.33 acre residential lot currently zoned RS8. It is surrounded by residential lots, and all adjacent lots contain a single-family home, though as I note later here, the lot to the west contains 2 residences on its property. The lots to the south and to the north contain a single-family residence with no notable accessory structures, and by that I just mean particularly close to any property lines. The existing primary structure is a 1-story conventional home with a footprint of approximately 1,100 square feet that was built in 1920. And again, the applicant seeks to subdivide the existing lot into 1 flag lot and 1 lot that conforms to those RS8 standards that I mentioned before. The applicant is seeking a variance from the members of the Board of Adjustment in order to complete these items. And just for some review, the existing lot's total road frontage is 59 square feet. The minimum width for the flagpole portion of a newly created lot in this area is 20 feet, and the minimum width at the street for a standard lot in RS8 is 40 feet. This leaves 1 foot in difference, which is what this variance is hoping to account for. The proposed subdivision would site the existing home on the newly created flag lot and leave a conforming RS8 lot at the front open to future development. The proposed flag lot would adhere to all other standards for both flag lots and those RS8 standards which are applicable to flag lots, most notably that 4,000 square feet and lot area, part of RS8. Just to, I'll leave these findings here that we can return to as necessary. But just to clarify on point 3, which reads, the hardship cannot have resulted from the actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. Carly helpfully gave us a little bit of extra language here to help us discuss this item, which is that legal limitations that are self-imposed, that is, they resulted from some action the owner/applicant took and not from a condition peculiar to the property, are considered self-created. And lastly, I just have a couple resources that we can return to in terms of the proposed subdivision, as well as that summary statement. And I'm happy to navigate between these various items as needed, but for now, I'll just leave it right here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Does anyone have any questions for Daniel while he's up? No? Okay, great.
And just as a note, we do have the applicant here, who I believe has prepared a presentation as well.
Great. If the applicant would like to come up.
Thank you.
Happen to have an extra one, yeah.
Come on.
Good afternoon. I'm Lindsay Hamer. I'm happy to be speaking with you today. Thank you for hearing our case. Daniel covered pretty much all the factual pieces. I really don't have much to add aside from the fact that there are 4 other flag lots on that same street that were already approved in our current flag lights on the street. I really have nothing else to add. He really covered it very well. So I just wanted to see if you had any specific questions for me at this time.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant? I think I do. No one else does.
Ms. Godsey, if it's all right with you, I would like to speak to, at a whole, some of the concerns that were brought from the neighbors. If that's all right, I'll be very brief.
Sure. Let us ask our questions of you first. So, as the Board of Adjustment, we have these 4 standards. And looking at your responses and looking at the graphics that were provided, I'm having a hard time getting to a point where I can see that there is a hardship related to response number 2 and response number 3, particularly response number 3, where the hardship does not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The action that you are taking is wanting to subdivide the property. So that is something that you are asking for. So you are, in essence, in my mind, creating this hardship for yourself. And I'll give you an example of something that would be a little bit different than your application. Let's say you were developed, the front of the lot was developed with a house, and maybe you had a detached garage, and it was maybe an inch over or 6 inches over or a foot over into that flag lot portion for maybe the width of your detached garage. That would be a site-specific hardship related to a peculiarity of your property where a small portion of the flag lot was asking for a variance to squeak around this built structure. In this case, we have an existing road that's accessing an existing home as well as an adjacent property, and by virtue of not having the linear footage that you have, you're unable to subdivide, which is why we are here, obviously. But there's nothing other than lack of the availability of land that is creating your hardship in my mind. That is, so I don't know if there's anything that you can state about that would maybe change my mind. The other response to number 2, A hardship will result in one less home and a significant reduction in repair budget for the existing home, which is not safe to live in, and I'm not sure how to circle the square on that answer. I don't know what that answer means exactly.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. That was something that my agent and contractor and I spoke about as well before the meeting. Fine if you want to gloss over that. That's fine. The truth of the matter is that the home that we have purchased and are bringing to livable standards comes with a lot more issues than it was originally anticipated. And so part of the financial package that we had developed as a team would allow for funds that would go towards additional repairs for that home. I realize that those are basically two different things. And so I'm fine if you don't want to discuss that. But in hindsight, which is obviously not something we always have access to until it's down the road, this home was purchased with the hope of being able to leverage that space in a way that would make sense and serve the neighborhood as well.
Those aren't the only questions I have for you. Does anyone have any other questions for the applicant?
Sort of, for me, it's like sort of a question, but at the same time, how I'm coming to a decision. When I look at these variances and they come through to me, I look at the hardships. That's my primary.
Absolutely.
And one of the strongest foundations for me on making decisions has a lot to do with safety.
Sure.
And how neighbors would be affected, and how topography and all this would be affected. Like Madam Chair, number 3 stands out to me in that it's like this is something that's being created that doesn't have to be. And that's difficult for me because I'm not seeing a safety issue, or I'm seeing something that is increasing to cause something else to happen, which is a safety issue for me.
Your concern is that there might be safety concerns during construction and in development? Is that understood? Okay. I'm not a general contractor, right? So I'm not going to be able to speak to the details of that, but I will tell you that the person that I'm working with is very well established and licensed and is building on White Avenue as we speak, and that's something that we can speak to you and to the neighbors about. And he's
That person here?
No, he is not here. I'm representing all 3 of us today. He grew up in Oakley. He's from here. He has a very palpable passion for taking care of his community as well. It's one of the reasons I enjoy working with him, and so I would be hard-pressed not to tell you that he would be able to address all of those with you and with the neighbors and be very happy to do so. We want to be part of a solution. We don't want to be part of a problem.
But as a board, when we look at these issues, it's very specific.
Sure.
And
I just can't speak to, I wouldn't be able to answer your questions about safety. I understand what you're saying, and my response, I guess, would be that I would, as an owner of the property, be responsible, and I would take full responsibility, and I would do everything I could to make sure that everyone's concerns were addressed fairly and equally in a reasonable manner, right? I can't make everybody happy with everything, but I would be happy to try.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
I have one. Just like the ladies that came up and spoke, I hear what you're saying. I think maybe part of is misunderstanding that we're dealing just with your one specific issue, and we do need to know, is there a hardship? What is the hardship? I'm with him on that. That is one of the clear rules that are laid out. What is that?
Sam and Daniel, is there anything that you guys want to add to this that we had spoken about with, Teresa and the team that would be helpful?
This is the question time for the applicant, so if you want to answer the chair member, yeah.
Okay, understood. Aside from, again, we weren't expecting to have something to come and say, like, this is a major glaring issue that we're trying to solve, but it would be helpful for us and what our project looks like if we were able to do this. And plus, like I said, we're trying to help create affordable housing in the Asheville area. And as you guys all know, there's not a lot of places where that exists any longer. This is one of the places where we can be part of the solution. So, if aside from what was written down, I'm not going to be able to offer any further details on that. And again, if it's helpful to note that there are 4 other flag lots on that property, on that street, we were anticipating this just being a something that was going along with things that had already been done on that road, not just in that neighborhood. We honestly didn't expect that we were doing anything or asking for anything that was outside of our rights or what's been happening. You have to forgive me. This is not something I do a lot,
We understand. We hear that a lot when people come here.
The agent and the contractor are not here, and so I'm doing my best here.
No, you're doing a great job. Sam or Chris, could you let us know of those 4 flag lots, and I saw them on a map somewhere, are those all compliant? Were they pre-UDO? Do we have any historical information about those flag lots?
Daniel, do you have that information?
They are,
I can pull that up for you real quick.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know. Just as a matter of record, I can see where you can see lots of things and think, I'd like to do that. But in essence, they may be compliant lots, and they had the right amount of road frontage and width to provide a flag lot for their original parcel. Does anyone have any other questions for the applicant?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
This is RM8, what is this?
RS8.
RS8.
It's a single-family high-density district.
So high density would allow, are we able to understand what the project is going to be? What would fit on that lot?
It is my understanding that would just be another single-family home.
One single family?
yes, exactly. The home that you guys saw pictures of, we're adding a small amount of square footage to the rear of the home. We're not changing the design of the home. We're not making modern homes. We're really trying to keep things in line with what's on that street. And again, if it's helpful, and something that I would like to share with the neighborhood is, I wouldn't be able to live in Asheville if I hadn't bought a long time ago. I wouldn't be able to afford it. And I am passionate about starter homes. I'm connected with Thrive Asheville and their projects with, transitional homes. My goal here is, as a local, is to represent Asheville and not come in as a foreign investor and make something that doesn't serve you. Again, I want to be part of the solution. And Mark, my builder, and him growing up here, my mother-in-law was a teacher in Fairview for 30 years. My father-in-law is a small business owner in Asheville. I'm going to raise my kids here. We're not going to do anything, and we want to work with you. I want to work with you. I want to understand your flood concerns. It's given everything we've been through. I will be on your team in this, and I don't know if a lot of owners would come in here and say, and maybe they would come in here and say the same thing, but maybe they wouldn't. And I have genuine intentions. I do.
I appreciate you saying that and stating that to the neighborhood. If no one has any other questions?
I have one small question, just real quick, if I can ask it, and it may be for Sam and Daniel and partially for you. When did the 20-foot variance go into a place, and when did you purchase this? Did you know this before that?
When did it go into place?
I was going to have you answer that.
And I apologize. This is my first day here, so I know what we're doing, but I have to make sure I'm following along here, so.
We purchased, I believe we closed in May. We were aware of the need that we would have to go through this process. But again, given the previous experiences and what was going on already there, we did not foresee this being an unacceptable ask.
So a couple of things. I want to go back and answer the question that there are a number of things at play here. first, to address the previous question from the board, 3 of the 4 meet that 20-foot standard. It seems that 1 is just a little bit under. So there is that. There are questions about stormwater and management that, and what is the responsibility. That is actually an excellent question for Ms. Watford, who is here. I can talk about this a little bit as someone with history as the residential review specialist about what is and isn't required. You are more or less required to manage the stormwater on your property. So this is, we see a lot of single-family residential permits. They have to handle the stormwater on their property and positive drainage away from this site. Once you get over 10,000 square feet, it gets a little more complicated. There's other nuance there, but we typically don't see stormwater requests at the RS8 standard. Now, there is something I also want, the question was, when was the 20-foot standard? So for other 7F parcels, that was done on March 11th. I misspoke. I think I had referenced February earlier. 2025 has been a long year. It's been many years, it felt like. So it is actually March 11th, 2025 is when that was for 7F. I cannot speak, and I can go back to, we do have older versions of our UDO. I can find out when that particular 20-foot standard was put in place.
The 20-foot
Flagpole
width
standard.
flagpole standard has been in the UDO for a very long time.
Wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so it's not anything that's new or related to some of the conversations that we had prior to the presentation being given by Daniel. Okay. So, go ahead.
So you said you knew about, you'd have to come before the Board of Adjustment.
I'm sorry?
You mentioned that you knew that you'd have to come before the Board of Adjustment for this process in purchasing?
We knew that we would have to get approval. I did not know the full process until maybe, I don't know, a few weeks ago.
Okay. Okay, my question was going to be, and I guess is, knowing that there was that issue, why did you move forward with the purchase?
Why did we move forward with the purchase?
Knowing that you'd have to go through a process that may get denied?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Why did we move forward with the purchase if we knew the process, if we knew? That we weren't guaranteed?
Correct.
Because it's still, again, it's a home in Asheville that we could renovate, make beautiful in a part of Asheville that needs affordable housing. We were going to do that with that property regardless, and we were just hoping that we'd be able to do it with a flagpole, with the flag lot as well. And it was worth the risk for us, so.
Much. So at this time.
So now, anyone who has been voted to have standing can ask the applicant questions on cross-examine if they wish. Otherwise, they can move on to their own testimony and presenting evidence if they don't have specific questions for the applicant. And after those with standing make their presentations of their testimony and evidence, the applicant can ask them questions as well.
Great. So if the two adjacent property owners would like to come up one at a time, either one. And again, just for the record, state your name. And if you have any questions for the applicant, you can ask those first and then provide your testimony.
No questions, just concerns. So Catherine Rebecca Massey, Massey. I live at 7 White Avenue, so it's one directly below the green flag, the green shape you can see there. So just real quick context about what's going on White Avenue. It is a very short street. There's maybe 15 or so houses on it. Right now, about a third of the neighborhood is under construction. Some of those houses have been flipped. Some of them are new construction. And the person who got the lot next door to me at 5 White Avenue also has 2 other houses they're building on that street. And the lot next door, as you see, as we've talked about, they want to put 2 houses instead of the one that's always been there. And so it's my understanding that they don't have, technically have enough space to do that, so they have to get a variance, which is an exception to the rule, which is special permission from the city, and that they already had to get another exception to the rule or special permission for the city for, I guess, at least one of the houses they're also building down the street. So if they do get variance and can go ahead with the building as planned, my house is going to be, or what they're building is going to be right up on my front yard and right up on two of my neighbors' backyards. And I don't even exactly understand how all of that's going to fit in that space, but that's another issue. So I've got 3, maybe 4 main concerns I wanted to address. One is that I'm worried that the new owners might cut off access to my driveway. The past 11 years, I've had a shared small gravel driveway that you guys saw pictures of, and it was never an issue of who owned it. We just had a neighborly agreement, and that happens a lot in Shiloh. There are a lot of people with shared driveways. But I don't know, I would like some assurance that I can still use my driveway, which is that little part going down that's apart from the main driveway. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Number 2, I don't see how there wouldn't be an increase in runoff and flooding. So 5 White Avenue is a little bit, or part of the lot is a little bit above 7. So that's high. Below it is me, that's 7, that goes lower. So what happens is that when it rains, the runoff always goes downhill. My neighbor can speak to how it goes into her yard, into my yard, down the street. And if the owner paves that small gravel driveway, then which is very likely because it's going to be a nice new house, very likely the runoff will be worse because the ground that's been somewhat permeable, had, gravel, the rain could absorb, is going to be impermeable. And that's going to increase, made of asphalt, I imagine. There's a lot less ground to absorb the rain. It's going to be more prone to flooding. And after Helene, we already know how bad that was. So anything more we do to make rain not absorb in the ground is dangerous. So number 3, there would be a really significant loss of trees and shade. There's no way to build 2 houses on that lot without taking out most or all of the trees, which are running on the very top of that screen. So I know that, I'm sure that the new houses that get built, because they're going to be nicer than anything else in our, the existing homes in our neighborhood, I'm sure those are going to have air conditioning, a good insulation, and they won't be affected by the loss of the tree canopy. But a lot of houses in Shiloh, on White Avenue and other places, they don't have AC. They depend on trees for shade. That's how we keep our houses cooler. With the record heat year after year, keeping the houses cooler is really important, and we depend on having all of the trees in our neighborhood to keep us cool. So I'm lucky that I have AC, but I'm concerned for my neighbors who are going to not have, they're going to be exposed to a lot more sun, and that's really difficult to manage when you don't have AC. So those were the 3 things I was going to talk about, but because Ms. Dixon and Ms., is it Bales? Baines, sorry. Baines and Ms. Samuel didn't get standing to speak, and I understand that that is related to proximity to the project, but so I just want to say that I'm worried about the effect that this construction is going to have, not just on my house, but my neighbors and the makeup of Shiloh as a whole. I'm pretty sure nobody who lives on our street could afford the houses that are going to go up on the street. And so when people talk about community-driven planning, which Shiloh is supposed to have with the aim of protecting and preserving the community and the families that lived there for decades, even with good intentions, I don't see how this is going to make affordable housing in Shiloh. And Shiloh is a historically Black community. It's a legacy neighborhood. And there's a pattern that you can see in the construction where just really simply people with more money are moving in, pushing out people with less money, and white people are moving into a historically Black neighborhood, pushing out Black people who've been there for decades. So that's what happened. That's why Shiloh exists in the first place. It's already a community that's been displaced. And so what's happening here is what's happening in Shiloh. And so I'm sorry that they didn't get the right to speak.
They do have a right to participate and speak, they just don't have legal standing in this case.
Yes.
So they can come up and speak in just a minute. So I appreciate your comments and your concerns. I'm guessing you've checked, you don't have any kind of cross easement for that driveway?
I don't know. I looked in all my papers and I'm not sure. So I spoke with Daniel and he said that it would be to look into a shared access easement, and I don't know how to go about getting that or what the procedure would be. But I just want to make sure I can use my driveway.
I'm sure planning staff can send you in the right direction. Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time.
Before moving on to the next person withstanding, the applicant may offer rebuttal evidence if she wishes.
Okay, so to keep this on the up and up,
That per se, I'm happy to, I wrote some questions, but this is highly unprofessional, but I have to leave at 3:30 to pick up my kid, is the only thing I wanted to let you know. So, and I don't want to be rude because I want to answer everybody's questions.
understood. Ma'am, if you could just restate your name and then,
My name's Kathy Connor, and I'm at 953 West Chapel Road, which is directly behind this proposed project.
great.
And you've actually answered my one question, which was what was the hardship in that, because they want to develop a second parcel. They want to create another parcel and put another house on it. And I believe that's going to ruin the character of the neighborhood, because the only way they can go is up. And I'm not sure what the design standards are for the pole portion of a flag lot when you separate it out into another parcel. And what kinds of things that creates and issues.
The
Are
pole
there
portion,
design standards for the pole portion of a flag lot?
the
and
pole
then you
portion is
separate
just
it
for the
out?
driveway. The pole portion is just for the driveway.
Yeah, the pole portion is just the driveway when they separate it out from the parcel that it's on. Then they create a new pole lot, basically, which is what they're doing. That's what they're asking to do. They're asking for them to give you 12 more inches so they can do a 20 by 40 developable lot, and then they'll create another pole on that particular parcel.
Are you following what she's saying?
No, and I want to be clear that what is being shown on the screen as proposed subdivision, those are the two lots that are there. There are no, North Carolina is very clear about design standards. We are very limited in that. There are lot geometries, which are sort of a different thing. What you are seeing there highlighted in green is the proposed flag lot that will be coming from the parent parcel, and then the subsequent 4,951 square foot lot. So those are the only two things. Both, again, the only variance is for what is before you, that the applicant is not seeking any variances for any other lot geometries, setback standards, anything like that. Setbacks and all other standards would apply.
So what are the setbacks on the new lot that's created where they take the pole out of that less than 5,000 square feet?
So it's still going to be the same thing for RSA, which is 15 in the front and rear, 6 on the side.
Okay, so is there restrictions on the amount of square footage that they can build on that size of a lot?
As long as it meets the building envelope and building height limitations.
Well, the building height is what I'm concerned about, to be able to get their house developable. I mean, you're looking at, 1,000 square feet on the bottom, so that means they're going to go up, and all the houses around it are two-story or less. So again, you're speaking to the legacy neighborhood, displacement, being able to blend and create a neighborhood. I mean, there's all kinds of issues here, but I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, I definitely hear your concern. I think, though, for this board, our focus is so incredibly narrow that
I understand.
that we're just looking at the 1-foot variance. So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we can move on to those who would like to participate in the hearing. So whoever would like to come up, if anyone else would like to add additional information. We did hear all of you when you were making your cases for whether you had standing or wanted to participate. But if anyone would like to get up and share any other additional information in regards to the variance, you can come up now.
And Madam Chair, I would also like to add that you do have the opportunity to set a time limit on presenting, which is not the case for standing. So if you wanted to limit the amount and to keep everything germane and not to repeat points, as is typically the case in PZC and council, you are welcome to do so.
So I don't see a lot of people jumping up to communicate, except for Mr. Wheatley. Mr. Wheatley, would you like to come up? And just remember, our applicant needs to pick our child up by 3:30, so just, if you could share what you need to share,
Yes,
and then we'll
Madam
move
Chair.
on. Thank you.
I appreciate the board allowing the time for input. What I'd like to do is address the variance percentage that is included on the staff report. Currently, it shows a variance request of 5%. However, within the definition of a flag lot, a flagpole is in fact required. So using a calculation of 20 as your denominator and 1 foot gets you to the 5% variance. However, Appendix 7A actually presupposes that the minimum flag lot within the city of Asheville in itself is 16. In the 7F areas, that's actually 20. So the difference between 16 and 20 is actually only 4 feet, which I would say is a more representative thought from the UDO, is that you should be 1 of 4, which would actually be a variance of 25% between both 7A, Appendix 7F, and properties and non-7F properties. So I would like the staff to maybe consider how that variance is actually being calculated, because there is no such thing as a flag lot with no flagpole, and that's not allowed anywhere in the city. So that's kind of a technical issue. I wanted to say I really appreciate y'all understanding harm and harm as it relates to the quasi-judicial hearing. That's really important. Within the 4 parameters that you're reviewing, the 4th is consistency. And City Council itself acted this year to create Appendix 7F to clearly show that these variances that are being approached within the city are particularly not in alignment with the parcels within 7F. So I would state that I appreciate your recognition that the added lot is probably more of a subsidy than a mitigation of harm. And development subsidies is not what the variance process is for. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Whately. Okay, so anyone else wish to speak? Okay, so if there's no more public comment, board, do we have a discussion? Or do we have a motion?
Motion to deny the variance.
Yes?
Ma'am, if you can get on the record on the mic.
I just wanted to speak with Ms.
I'm,
I'll be happy to say it.
I think we're fine.
yeah.
Motion.
I think we're fine. It's fine.
Go ahead.
I motion to deny the variance.
I second it.
Great. All right, board, as I say your name, we have a motion in the negative. So I always want to make sure that we vote in the correct way we want to vote. So we have a motion to deny the variance. So by saying aye, we are in support of denying the variance. Just wanted to be clear on that. So as I say your name, please say aye or nay. Elliott Smith.
Aye.
Jeremy Plemons.
Aye.
Chris Von Danish.
Aye.
Annette Wise.
Aye.
Suzanne Godsey is an aye. The variance is denied. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, everyone, we have one more variance, and it's a flood variance. And let me find my piece of paper on that one. Okay, the applicant, Joseph Fitzgerald, who I think we've seen before, I'm not sure where he is requesting a variance to the standards in sections 712.1E2B and 712.1E2E flood hazard reduction of the UDO. The purpose of the request is to allow for the repair of a historic structure without fully complying the flood protection standards in order to preserve its historic character. The property is known as 1 Swan Street, and the PIN number is 9647-790985. And Sam Starbaum is here to present today. Thank you, Sam.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to our newest member of the BOA, Mr. Plemons. We appreciate you signing up. We hope that you appreciate the free bus pass as appropriate compensation. But before us, we have another flood variance. You got to keep it light around here.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Oh, even after I said it. Sheesh.
I think the mic needs to be raised because we do have quite a few tall people today that we're trying to,
Yeah, that is a little difficult when you're you have a different height. So yes, before us today, we do have another flood variance. This is 1 Swan Street. This is related to Helene. My presentation will look the same as all other flood variances. I do ask for the board's permission to be a little bit slower here with a new member to go through that same presentation and sort of show the work as if this were math class, if it were, to explain what happens in a flood variance.
I think that would be helpful
Yeah.
since we have a new member. Yes.
And I think that is always important for anyone watching, just for posterity. So for the board, again, what happens in the event of a flood or anything catastrophic, force majeure, as the legal world calls it, if your building sustains damage that is greater than 50% of the total building value, that is determined to be substantially damaged. This means that as you rebuild to the City of Asheville standards, you then have to bring it up to new standards. This would include flood standards, so elevating the building 2 feet above base flood elevation. Of course, many historic buildings are not built to that, or for instance, are built from brick or other things that aren't considered flood resistant but do allow water pass through, and indeed are probably the reason why they survive flooding events. So there has to be a flood variance to allow for the building, if it is historic and meets other standards like being 50 years older, a contributing building, things like this, to stay as they are. Because if you were to take a historic building and raise it 14 feet, it would impact that historic character. So there is a very narrow scope in which anyone can seek a variance for a flood damaged, which is substantially damaged, 50% or greater, to then remain the same and not bring everything up to standard. Now, that is not to say that they get a free pass on everything. They still have to bring it up to standard as much as possible. There are ways like using gypsum board instead of drywall. There is a whole other. You've heard the most about appendices today. There is yet one more. FEMA has a flood bulletin appendices, which is flood resistant materials. You would have to use those. So you have to comply with FEMA and these standards to the extent practicable, just not in the entirety, again, because that would impact the historic structure. So what we do is we evaluate, and you can see in your reports, in your packets, we have everything from Alex Cole and the HRC verifying that this can move forward, and everything from Nancy and Derek and the capable team down at DSD saying this is what this floodplain administrator's report is. That is the case here. So you can see I have kept it this way. It is very simple. What we have for the building value is $218,000. That is from the tax assessor's office. That is probably a false number. It is probably much, much higher than that. But we have seen that to restore the building back to the day before, not anything new, not anything for new tenants, not anything fancy, but to make it as it was on September 23rd, it would cost $172,438. And that is something that they have to submit to us in the cost of work to say this is what it would be pre-event. Now, as you see here with the math, that just doesn't work out. It is considered beyond that 50%, it's 79.1% substantially damaged, which brings us to the variance request today. Now there are, I think this, as I had said to you, Mr. Plemons, this is the perfect BOA hearing to attend to onboard a member, because you get a great flood variance, and then you get sort of what is the 4 issues that are at the core of any variants that are given to us by the North Carolina general statutes. There are a couple of different standards for granting a flood variance that you also have to look at, and they are in your packet. I put them here. I think the important one is highlighted in orange, that no development permit has been approved, so you can't get most of the way done through the work and go, well, just kidding. We have allowed for demo, trade, and certain things. just for emergency Helene permits, that is acceptable, but you can't then build and go, well, we need forgiveness, not permission. So that is one of the things we're looking at, but these are still the standards that must be met. These are here. I will, of course, not read them all. And then there are your bread and butter findings of fact, which you will see in every variance that comes before you, again, because that's the statutory standard. And so that brings us to today, where we are looking specifically at 1 Swan Street and how this meets all those standards. This is, again, going to comply with the maximum extent possible. It is not a complete free-for-all from all those standards, again, complying with the maximum extent possible. Here you can see where Swan Street is. This is in CB1, which is one of the 2 most common districts in the historic Biltmore Village District. It's either CB, which is Community Business 1, or Community Business 2. This little stretch of sort of Swan Street, right till you get to what turns into Sweeten Creek, is just that designation, and you can see how it is with the area. You can see Fairview Road as it goes to the north and part of the railroad right-of-way, and then what turns into Sweeten Creek. And then you can see this flood hazard map. This tells you sort of what the challenges are with all of this and what sort of this BFE is. So this is an example of where this is at 1,999.5 for its regulatory flood elevation. You have to be above that, and then you have to build your building. You know, it is a challenge that we have seen, and that's why we have seen so many flood variances. I'll also let Nancy speak a little bit to that. I apologize, I did not get many good street view images here. This is looking from the side. This is what turns into Sweeten Creek. This is looking, that would be west. It is a building that hosted a number of things. It's artist galleries, architects, lawyers, things like that. It is a 2-story building. It is very common in the district. It looks the same. Here it is sort of from that front. I apologize if that's your car in front, but that gets to appear at a BOA. But this is what it looks like from street view. And then there are also 7 conditions that exist that I recommend for every flood variance. Again, just to make sure that for edification of Mr. Plemons, these have to get a variance, and because they are historic, and if they are in a historic district, they have to meet historic standards, which means they also have to go to the Historic Resources Commission. There is some debate over which order is most efficient and most effective, but this is staff condition number 1, just guarantees that they obtain that certificate of appropriateness, whether that's going to the board or working specifically with Alex Cole, our historic resource planner for that. And then everything else is just making sure that there's a flood action plan, and conditions 3 through 7 are effectively guaranteeing that they are going to meet to the extent practicable, and they are going to improve the standard of the building, just without meeting everything, without having the elevation, so just where they can. So that is a brief overview. There's a lot of nuance with this, and I can speak a little bit to the peculiarities of the property if you'd like, but largely I will be happy to stand for any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Sam? I think we all know what's going on down there in Biltmore Village.
Business as usual for the other 4 members.
Right, exactly. Okay, great. Is the applicant or the applicant
Oh, the applicant is here, yes.
here? Did you get sworn in? I did. You did? Okay, great. No more questions for Sam? No? Okay. You want to come up and say anything, Mr. Fitzgerald? I don't, we've seen you before. We've seen you before.
Not his first rodeo.
Okay, is there anyone here that wishes to speak about this? Okay, seeing no one, is there a discussion? Is there a motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor when I say your name?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, is that with conditions?
Oh, I am so sorry. I knew you were standing up there for something, and I was like, what is he doing?
With conditions.
Okay, let us, prior to voting, amend that motion to say approve with the staff conditions. Do you want him to read the conditions or just refer to them?
Motion to amend, and I motion to approve based on the conditions that were presented in front.
I second that.
Great, all right. Thank you, Sam, for saving us. Okay, board members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Elliott Smith?
Aye.
Jeremy Plemons? Chris Van Danish?
Aye.
Annette Wise?
Aye.
Suzanne Godsey is an aye. The variance is approved. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there any information that anyone needs to share? Okay, great. Well, if there is no objection, we will be adjourned. None? Great. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping me straight.